Okay, we're live, and I'm here today talking to Stephanie Pinto, emotional intelligence parent coach, author, speaker, and her new book is about to be released on the 12th of March, which is called From Chaos to Connection. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So we're talking today about how, as parents, or how parents conflict, rather, the conflict that parents have in their personal relationships and how that affects children. And Stephanie deals with parents, helping them learn emotional intelligence skills and strategies so that they can then teach emotional intelligence to their own children. So Stephanie's a really good person to talk about this because she can see the effects when working with families that conflict has. And I'll just pass over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually just got off a call with a beautiful mum who, this stuff, it's the perfect topic to be talking about, because with her, like we discussed, childhood and the ways in which we perceived or experienced conflict, and how that really has such a huge impact in how we are now as adults and how we deal with our emotions, how we show up in conflict and those kind of challenging moments. And a lot of us don't realize, I feel like we don't realize that those early experiences, of which, like, did we have, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of experiences and moments where we noticed, or we had an awareness, or we were in an interaction, and we learn how to or how not to deal with emotions and conflict and disagreements and stuff. So yeah, I just think and for that particular amazing mum, like, she grew up not really learning what emotions truly are. She was taught, so to speak, that emotions are silly and childish and embarrassing or awkward, or to be dealt with behind closed doors, and we don't want to see that, like, toughen up, or and so a lot of messages I think we have received as kids, and maybe that's a good thing for people to reflect on, is what messages you kind of, received as a child about, when people disagree or in conflict or argue, what did you witness, and how is that now, that's shaping how we are as adults. That makes sense.
Completely does. And it all, sometimes when we witness aggression, we can either model the aggression when we grow up, or we can become completely the opposite, where we reject and repel it, and we're like, I'm never going to be like that, and so we never show any aggression in ourselves. So it can warp you in different ways. That's what I've seen. Yeah. The old thing about anger being bad and ugly, or anger giving us power, and bullying, and it's just, there's just so many. And people do feel anger when they're in conflict. If you're in a, like, the reason it's called conflict is because it's not harmonious. And it can get ugly, like not pleasant.
Yeah. So I literally did not witness a whole lot of conflict as a child, and what that actually taught me, so to speak, is that we should not disagree and should not argue, and there should be no shouting, because it's bad and it's wrong, and it's a sign of breakdown and like I often say to people, when I met my now husband, we were teenagers, and he's Portuguese and very loud, explosive, and is emotional and stuff. I crumbled like a flower. I could not deal with when he was upset or mad about something, or we argued. I would just like completely fawn and apologize, and like I had no boundaries, and I didn't have conflict resolution skills. Basically, I was like, no. Like, it was intolerant to my nervous system and my brain for someone to be upset with me or to argue with me. Like, I don't know how I made it through. I was very safe and like a people pleaser and a good girl through school and stuff. So people weren't angry with me because I did what I was told. And so, man, when we argued at like 16, 17, 18, I just couldn't, I had no skills whatsoever. Like I was the most emotionally unintelligent person.
And look at you now, you're authoring books and coaching parents. How inspiring are you? That's amazing.
It takes work.
So obviously, if we're in relationships, the solution isn't to have a completely harmonious, conflict-free home where everybody's tiptoeing around pleasing everybody else and there's no conflict. And I actually have had clients where my client was more like your husband, and it was a lady, and her husband was the, oh no, that's not how families are. We don't ever have anything, no anger, no frustration, no nothing. And it is interesting to see how different homes have different ways of dealing with.
Yeah, it's like the way I explain it to parents is we each have a culture within our own little family unit. Like forgetting the whole culture of like my husband's Portuguese and my family were from the UK, so very English and polite and proper and conservative. We have, you know, everyone has a culture, like a way of being as a family. And it's created because when you partner up with someone, then you're merging the two and you find your own way. But like think about even if you're not a parent now, think about the culture of your family growing up. Was it bad and not unacceptable to be angry or to raise your voice and to be mad about something, or to say, no, I don't want it, or I'm not ready, or I need more time, or I don't like it? Like for some families, they had a culture of compliance is shut that down. We want our kids to be polite, quiet, obedient, compliant, like mini adults. They shouldn't challenge us or question us or our decisions. They should just kind of mindlessly like do what we say. And I'm like, isn't that kind of dangerous? Because when, like, I often say to people, like, if I'm lucky that I wasn't offered drugs, and like, I would have been like, okay, I had to work on being able to say to someone at Gloria Jeans in the coffee line who like ducked in, I had to work on being like, excuse me, there's a line, like I'm waiting, you know, because it was so like that would be a mini conflict, like me disagreeing or saying you've done something wrong. Like I would shrivel. I would rather be late to my work or appointment than say, excuse me, like there's a line and I'm next. Like, oh, it was so hard.
Oh, that is so good that you've made such big steps forward. So I'm sure there are people that are watching that can completely relate, because that people pleasing, shut down my voice, not safe to be seen, not safe to be heard, I have to be a good girl, all that stuff there's a whole culture of people who experience that. And then there's a whole culture of people who have learned the complete opposite. Like I have to fight to get my way. I have to speak over people to be heard. I need to push myself to the front. And that would be learned from childhood as well, and most likely from that family culture. And it's all changeable. Like everything is changeable. As soon as you bring something into your adult awareness, you're able to shift it and change it. And like that's why we do all the work that we do on self-improvement, self-development, and so forth. But I guess talking about conflict, what strategies can you recommend to people so that they're not shutting everything down and they're not blurting it, like doing an emotional vomit at people when they get triggered, or when they get, you know, when somebody doesn't agree or something? What's some strategies that are helpful that you teach parents about dealing with big emotions? So disagreement, conflict, family.
Such a good question, and something that, like you said, regardless of how you react, whether it's the shutdown, the stonewalling, the ignoring, the like detach, well, not talking about this, or it's the eruptive, explosive, you know, raise your voice and fight to power struggle, like explosion.
That's my family, by the way.
need a little bit of that sometimes. Regardless of the way, I think, you know, you and I both know, and we love sort of the understanding of and the awareness of the nervous system, and the way that our nervous system is often reacting for us in this really primitive kind of way of, you know, sensing in the situation or your environment or the people, your partner or your whoever it is, your boss at work. What it's doing is unconsciously picking up cues as to whether I feel safe and I'm okay and I can engage and listen and problem solve and all that stuff, or whether there's a threat, there's a danger that I need to mobilize, I need to activate, and I need to react. You know, I just find knowing this stuff about our brain and our nervous system and our body, and like that stuff that underpins our emotional reactions and our behaviors. When you understand that, you're like, oh no wonder I am reacting in this way. Like I realized, no wonder I shut down. That was my nervous system's go-to response of too hard, too much, too scary. I'm out of here. And well, I would faint. I would actually. You're
a freezer. You're literally a freezer, aren't you?
I freeze in arguments. My brain switches off, and my husband will be like, "Well, you said this, and then you said that. So what do you mean? You're not making sense." And I'm like, my brain goes offline, which now I understand why that happens.
Yeah.
And I would have in the past actually just physically dissociate, like I would faint. And that was mortifying, but that was my response because I never allowed myself to erupt and react and go, what do you mean? Like, and to give it back. I could never meet that person toe to toe. Like, so anyway, knowing your own nervous systems, habits and patterns and responses also gives you the insight, a little bit of understanding and empathy into that other person that you're maybe in conflict with. Oh, that person, like my husband, he's Portuguese. And so he had, again, hundreds of thousands of moments and interactions and experiences where everyone erupted. That's just what you do. You erupt at each other. And if, you know, that's just the culture, again, the culture in their family. So anyway, I guess a strategy, or, you know, one thing I invite people to reflect on and to think about is, what's your go-to? Like, how do you tend to respond or react? What's your nervous systems and your like your habit? Consider that other people are just reacting and having those patterns because of the way they were raised and what's in their genetics and things like that. So it builds a bit of that compassion, I think. Like, I'm more compassionate and understanding and patient and tolerant when my husband erupts with the kids, because I'm like, how could he have responded any other way? He's had this and like, he hasn't had the training of child development and emotional intelligence that I've had. So anyway, bringing some of that coolness, that more calm understanding to the situation. And I'm a huge believer in normalizing big emotions like anger, like rage, like frustration or disappointment and sadness and grief. Like, they're the ones that are really unpleasant. We don't like feeling them. They are energetically draining. So I get that they're not nice emotions to sit in. I've had to learn how to sit in them because then I can learn from them. But, you know, a lot of the time we want to sweep them under the rug. We want to ignore them and pretend they're not there. We want to scroll on social media because it's easier and numbing. And so I think normalizing things like anger, it can be a powerful emotion, but it's giving us that huge message, like a little flag going ding, 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 ding. Hey, something isn't right. Maybe a boundary has been crossed, or you need to speak up, or, you know, someone's trigger. Yeah, like, we can learn from these highly intelligent messages that are coming up, you know, as emotions. We have to kind of sit in them in order to decipher them and think, oh, I shouldn't have said yes to this. That's why I'm feeling so frustrated, because I have too much on my plate. And she asked, and I said, yes, of course I'll do it. And now I'm pissed off. And actually, that's what this is telling me. Steph, stop saying yes to things that don't fit in your calendar or whatever it is.
Yeah, totally get it.
I think, normalizing those is huge.
I find that it's easy to react to the feeling. Like I'm a fighter. I go straight to fight. If I'm not fighting, I'm flighting. There is never a freeze. Very action based. That didn't used to be the case in the past, because my mum was very submissive and not shouty, and my dad was very angry. So you have also the masculine versus feminine role models that you pick up. So if one parent is more shouty than the other, it can affect the kids in different ways. But what I find really helpful is to, like you said, once you understand something fully, then it's impossible to be really angry, and you can more get an observation thing going where you're like, oh, I'm observing this in myself and in the other person. And once you've got that, you can start to look for expressive words. And you talked about vocabulary before, like talking about, I'm feeling a rush of energy up my body. I feel like I want to shout. I feel really angry. I am thinking these thoughts. Like there's a whole stack of stuff than just like, I'm really angry. I'm really angry. So talk a bit about emotional intelligence and how the vocabulary can give us some power in expressing that anger in other ways that are not as damaging.
That I wonder if I have. So I've got this is one of my kids' emotion wheels that I've created. It's a really simple, you can see it's got lots of colors, and it's got, I don't know how many is on there actually. There's probably like 30 or something on there. A lot of us and a lot of our kids have like a handful of emotion vocabulary, emotion words in our vocabulary. We have happy, sad, mad, maybe stressed if you're a parent, or pissed off. And there's like, this is my kids one. I have an adults one that has over 100 emotion related words, as a vocabulary. We're using like a fraction of what's available to us. And most of the time, if we feel angry on the surface level, what's underneath is actually
layers.
Maybe disappointment, because I was really looking forward to that and then it fell through, or that person got it and I didn't. And so I'm not just pissed off and angry, I'm actually really disappointed because I cared about that thing. So if we don't know how we're truly feeling, like the nuanced feelings and emotions, then we're not able to identify, express them, and regulate, like use some strategies to process those, because we're just going to sit in the anger, or we're going to say or do something we regret, or we're going to just sweep it under the rug and scroll and numb. So I think developing an emotional vocabulary for adults, it's as easy as like getting googling the adult emotion wheel.
Well, it's available on your website, isn't it? Stephanie.com. Is it .com? Yep. StephaniePinto.com. And you can download the emotion wheels for both yourself and your children from Stephanie's website.
Yeah. So, those things, listening to talks like this, and there's so many, there'll be TED Talks, there's stuff on YouTube, like things where you can do your own self-directed learning around, type in emotional intelligence or, that kind of thing. You will find so much information out there. One of my favorite, I've got tons of favorite books, but one is called Permission to Feel. And that's by Professor Mark Brackett, who's the founding director of Yale University's Center for Emotional Intelligence. So there's a whole center centered around emotional intelligence and research and development in Yale University in the US. Like, this is a huge area of, like, this is coming to the forefront right now. He's written a book on it, and essentially it says, he's got this beautiful kind of 5-step, I want to say, like, method to developing and growing your emotional intelligence. And his acronym is RULER, RULER. And the R stands for, first, we need to be able to recognize the emotions and the sensations within our body. Like we talked before about the lump in your throat, the knot in your chest, the butterflies in your tummy, or like whatever that stuff is. I bloody ignored that. I shoved it down. I thought, no, I'm okay, I can do this. And then, bam, my body would be like, no, you can't. I'm gonna make you faint. Like, but I wasn't listening to those uneasy, gurgly, knotty feelings. I suppressed them, right? So recognizing those really valuable signals from your body, the emotions and the sensations, which we're not taught to do, by the way.
No.
As we're taught to.
And we can teach our children that now. If we're parents, if you're a parent and you're listening, you can go to the child and say, where is this in your body? Can't you? Tell me what's going on in your body.
Yep. And we've got to stop saying to our kids and to ourselves, it's not a big deal. He didn't mean it. It's an accident. You're fine. It's like, even for other things, how many times do we say, it's not spicy, eat it. It's not itchy, wear it. Like, we're constantly validating our kids' experience and emotions. And we're saying our kids are upset or nervous or anxious. No, everyone is having fun. You've been here so many times before. Come on, you're fine. You're fine. I'm not bloody fine. So, like you said, tuning into those and validating them. So recognizing them, understanding is the you. So understanding where those emotions or feelings are coming from, what's happened to bring them about or to cause them, this friend said that, or I'm worried about the assignment or whatever it is. L is for label. So again, like being able to actually use more accurate and specific vocab to say, I'm feeling embarrassed, ashamed, lonely, confused, disappointed. Like, there's so many, right? So actually being able to label what we're feeling, and that takes time to know specifically, well, this thing happened and am I feeling that or this, And then the E is to express this, how you're feeling, to someone, to yourself, to get it out, or to express it to a parent or a teacher or someone in the right way, at the right time, like without blowing up. Like, you can express your emotions by blowing up.
Healthy expression.
Yeah, healthy expression, right? And then the final R in ruler is then we can take some steps to regulate and kind of process those emotions. What do I need to do for me, individualize, personalize? What's going to help me to move through and process that emotion? Do I need to be on my own? Do I need to be with someone else? Do I need to vent this to someone? Do I need to go and put music on or ground outside, on the grass, or hit the beach? Or, everyone is different, but what helps me, because that's going to be different to what helps you and you and you. But like, that takes you being able to sit in the emotion and listen to it and feel it. And that's really hard for a lot of us.
So I guess there's 2 points to that ruler. There's the ruler that you can apply to yourself when you're in a conflict, to use healthy ways to model to your children how to have conflict without causing undue distress. And then on the counterpart of that is, if there is a situation which does get out of hand and it does seem big and scary and awful, to go and check in and use that ruler acronym with the kids, to talk to them about recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing and regulating through what's going on. And I just want to tell a quick story about a time when I was just about to take my kids to childcare in the morning before work, and I had a situation where there was a big conflict, and they witnessed this conflict, and I dropped them off at school. And when I picked them up in the afternoon, the preschool said they'd done all this awful stuff and hit people, and they'd been out of control. And the thing is that once an emotion is activated, if you've put into fight flight mode and then dropped off to school, I mean, behavior is going to come out. They're either going to shut down and withdraw, and you're going to be like dealing with a shutdown, or there's going to be a fight or something in them coming up, because they have to express it. And if they're not given that ruler technique, it's got to blow out somewhere, doesn't it? And so a lot of people come to you with children that have behavior issues. And so this emotion stuff is really important. And it doesn't mean that they've got, like, every child that has behavior issues, there's a massive thing going on, but it means that there's always benefit from learning emotional intelligence to regulate. Yeah,
100%. Like, if we need support to deal with and navigate our child's big emotions, challenging behaviors, you know, disruptive or defiant or, you know, avoidant, those kind of things, it's so powerful to start with us as the parent to go, what can I do? How can I tweak, change my approach and the way I'm connecting with them, responding to their big emotions, guiding them and teaching them these emotional skills. There's so much we can do as parents. But again, like, we're not taught this stuff. We might take a class to have the baby, like a prenatal class.
Here's your baby.
Yeah, like what job, what other job, because parenting, you can think of it like a job or an occupation. What other job would we have no training? You haven't even done a course. You need to know all these intricate like skills. Some of us go to uni for like 4 years or more to be prepared for a really demanding, challenging, you know, involved, intricate job. And parenting, like, you never stop being a parent, right? Even when your kids are in their 20s or 30s. Mm-hmm. And yet we're not trained, like, we don't get this child development training or psychology. Like, you need a bit of psychology.
Conflict resolution, terrorist negotiation skills.
Yeah, bargaining. So I think being able to, like, when we do have conflict, and which is inevitable, number one, like, we know from resilience literature that to build resilience in a child, they do need to experience a certain level of adversity and challenge and conflict and things like that. We can't cotton wool our kids through life and then think that they're gonna be resilient. Like, that was, I mean, not that I was cotton wooled, but yeah, my first big arguments, and I crumbled like a leaf. Like, we've got to supportively allow our kids to experience conflict and witness it, and then to talk with them about it in the moment, after the moment, and explain to our kids in age appropriate language, like what was happening, why we were arguing, and that disagreeing is normal and we don't all see things the same, and sometimes we get heated and our volcano blows, and you know, it's not ideal, and we try not to hurt each other, but we're allowed to say what we feel, and then how we repair and how we come back together and how we apologize or make amends, or, you know, all of that stuff is like gold to teaching kids. Like, it's okay, it's uncomfortable, but we do argue and we have that breakdown, and then we come back together and we're a little bit stronger. Like, we understand each other a bit more now. You know, that stuff I kind of wish I experienced a bit more of. I remember mum and dad must have like argued upstairs in their bedroom behind the door, because we didn't really witness a lot of it. So yeah. I didn't learn that was normal and healthy. I thought the world was coming to a close. Like, this is it. Like, I didn't go, okay, this is, you know, we'll get through it. I was like, ooh. So anyway.
Yeah. And I guess then, so there's so many aspects of this, because you've got people that might be watching that are parents, and a lot of the strategies that you use, like if you do have an argument and your kids witness it, or you get cranky with your kids, showing big emotions to your kids, and then sometimes the guilt comes in, and instead of doing that ruler strategy where you're giving them tools and teaching tools, we might go into guilt and then try and compensate. So then we're teaching, like, when I have a big feeling, I stuff it down with food and buying things, and all those things. And then there's the people that might be watching that, you know, it might not be a parenting aspect, but you might have been that child that witnessed the fighting, that was bought the stuff or given the lollies or the chocolates, or not comforted, or sent off to school with being told, you know, stop crying, or, you know, whatever, all the different aspects of this conversation. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your book.
My book coming out. It is essentially a collection of, you know, I guess awarenesses and understanding and strategies and things around using emotional intelligence to raise kind, resilient, and confident kids. So we don't want to have kids who don't know how to deal with their emotions. They blow up at the drop of a hat, or they shut down, or anxiety overtakes them. Like we obviously want to raise balanced and resilient and, kids with well-being, mental well-being. And emotional intelligence is allowing and accepting and validating our kids' emotions in the moment when they have them, but it's also holding boundaries around hurtful, harmful, dangerous, inappropriate behavior, because we do have to be our kids' kind of guide and mentor, right? We can't let them lash out and hurt other people and just do what they like. Like I'm always telling my kids, any and all emotions are fine. Like that's part of being human. Having emotions is as much a part of being human as having a nose or an elbow. Like we don't hide it. So that's fine, but not all behavior is okay. You can't hurt people. You can't use harmful words and things like that. So it's balancing how we can give our kids freedom with limits, and we're not always trying to control them or be super authoritarian and have punishments and consequences. It's about giving them a bit of freedom because they're kids and their brain is under construction, but also having those healthy limits and boundaries so that we are, keeping them on course and not going too far off. That's also unproductive if we don't have rules and boundaries and stuff. So it's a bit of all that, and some stories from me and my clients and stuff too. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's been a lot of shift in parenting. If you were raised in the 1950s, it was like use the rod. And then it, kind of went a little bit further to super nanny type stuff. Everybody needs to cry their children and use timeout. And now we're getting into this. And I mean, I've got kids that are age 32 down to age 4. So I'm in a total state of confusion. And I say that to you all the time. It's like, will I use 1990s parenting? Will I use the 2000s parenting? Or am I welcoming in the whatever you call this generation now? And I do try very hard to think, what would Stephanie do in this situation? Because I do feel that as a trauma therapist, I'm working with trauma, and a lot of trauma is childhood, a lot is school, and a lot is siblings. Now, if you think about conflict in a family, the parents are modeling, how do we fight? Like, how do we disagree? And then that gets transferred down to the kids in the sibling thing. So you've got a whole stack of strategies that are causing trauma just between siblings as well. So it's really important, if you are a parent and you are interested in learning about Stephanie's emotional intelligent parent coaching, you can find her on stephaniepinto.com. And is your book available there as well on your website, or is that on Amazon?
It will be soon. It'll be in a couple of weeks on Amazon and on my website. So you'll be able to find it and order a copy.
Awesome. Is there anything else you just want to share before we wrap up?
I think, like, just before we went live, we talked about the concept of forgiving people for their choices, for their behavior, for what has gone on and things like that. I think it's really powerful to understand a lot of the stuff we've talked about, emotions, childhood, upbringing, and to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, I stuff up, I yell, and I blow up, and I would like people to sort of have that compassion and forgiveness for me, because I'm doing the best I can. I know I'm not perfect, but I need to afford that to other people and forgive them. And, people in your family, other people, in-laws, and other people around you, we are all doing the best that we can with the level of consciousness or awareness that we have and the tools we have. So I think a little bit of compassion and forgiveness can sometimes bring us back down to knowing, we're all trying to get through the best that we can with all of our stuff going on. So, yeah. Yeah,
that's beautiful. Forgive. The concept that you said that everybody's doing their best, that's an NLP presupposition, that everybody's doing the best they can with the resources and knowledge and skills that they have available to them. And it can give you some compassion, which can free you from some of the big responses too. Well, thank you, Steph, for your time this morning. I know you're a very, very busy lady, and I'll put this on YouTube and get it out there for everybody, and hopefully, and I'll also see you in person at your book launch.
Yes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting Stephanie Pinto and me. Bye, everyone.